This is the Sober Boozers Club podcast.
Welcome everybody to the Sober Boozers Club podcast. My name is Ben Gibbs. I'm an alcoholic and I've been sober since January 2022. In that time, I have been navigating the world of alcohol-free beers, sampling some of the best that the world has to offer. In this podcast, we're going to talk to people from within these circles and find out a little bit about their journey. So you sit back, relax, and enjoy. In today's episode, I am talking to Richard Gray, aka Zumo Juice. Now, Richard is a graphic designer by trade, and he's happened to work with some of the best craft breweries in the country. We also discuss alcohol-free beer on a daily basis, and I'm pleased to say he's become one of my closest friends. So, I thought it would make sense to get him on for an episode and have that chat in public. How are you, sir?
Hi, I am very good, sir. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good actually. Although I've been experimenting with that Czech milk beer, and it hasn't gone well. I mean, you can see my remains in the glass. This is like an hour after I poured it up, but it's still. I mean,
I've poured some very bad beers, good beers, but I've poured them very badly. And I think we all have at some point. I think it's the guilty pleasure or guilty thing where you kind of go. Oh, I was going to post that for the gram. I was going to post that out, and I've just totally muffed that. I'm going to have to wait for 10 minutes for that to settle.
Do you know, for me, the worst thing is the water, the tap water where I live is just so hard that no matter how well I clean a glass, as soon as I pour it up, it's just like, that looks filthy. It looks horrific, and I don't know what to do about it.
I run it through the dishwasher, and it's like it can become straight out of there, and it's still. It just looks filthy, and you're like, it's not, but it's, yeah.
Yeah, I've had a finger in the glass before, just going around the rim of it, trying to get rid of those like horrible little bubble marks on the outside. And I think it's when you start doing that, that's when you go, okay, I'm into this for like pretentious reasons now.
Yeah,
which is a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends if whether you're kind of trying to take a picture of a beer for as a document. And I think that's it. There are accounts that document their beers and like this. I've had that, and then there are those that are like just I mean, I think if you're going to be an account that sits there and says this is a beer account, then you've got to try it. The level's now risen that you can't just get away with just shooting from the hip, if you like. So I think when I do it, I'm just like I'm a designer, but I also happen to like alcohol-free beer. So there's me taking pictures going, actually, this one's really, really good. And I feel just like I'm doing it as more of a shout out to the people who are, I think, partly so that obviously other people who are following me like yourself and other alcohol-free beer kind of be like, oh, okay, that's one we should check out too. But also just to be like, fair play, guys, this is really good. And I don't know how you've managed to do it straight off the bat or whatever it happens to be, but because I think that there's just the whole standard of the industry is just really, really high right now. And I still think there's still scope, and that's what's really interesting to me. I feel still that there's this scope, and you can see that where there's going to be growth, and you can see I think we're almost on the tipping point of some sort of innovation. Somebody's going to come up with something that's going to be an absolute game changer, and it's just whether they can get it out there. And I think it will be some kind of compound, because I know Smash Gang were playing with sorts of bits and pieces in the background, and now that obviously they've got the mega bucks to play with, Jordan's I know he's basically moved straight into R&D, so he's basically spent the last nearly 6 months just tinkering, doing lots of exciting things. And the weird thing is that Mash Gang were doing all of that before, just on a shoestring budget. But, he was the guy who wanted to just like disappear down a rabbit hole and discover some weird ass compound from America that's barely legal in the UK and is shipped over from some, dodgy seller or whatever. But he was getting these compounds and putting them in, and they were things like, I think even some of the early beers had some, sort of alcohol compounds that were not alcohol compounds, but like things that would fool your body into thinking that you drunk a beer in your stomach. And it didn't work on everybody. A bit like it's like a nootropic type of affair. Yeah. So it didn't work for everybody, but if you kind of concentrated on it and but things like that, I think are going to be where the market's going to start playing with. I think the idea is that, some of these nootropic kind of compounds will stop being gimmicky. as they sort of are now, if you like, and they'll start to be really properly functional. And it'll be something like to really get that kind of that flavor profile that, depending on the style, there are certain styles that an alcohol-free beer absolutely is nailing, and there's others that are not quite there yet. And there's some that don't exist.
Yeah. You're like, someone asked me recently if I'd ever had a black IPA, and I've only had one to date, and that was an Athletic brew that was obviously a US exclusive that Martin Dixon sent across to me, and it was good, but I've not come across anything like that since. And you're right, there are certain beers that you just can't get.
Was the Brewlow, didn't Brewlow do a black IPA?
If the problem is it was before my time.
Yeah, you see, the problem is I think it was because there was a Brewlow went through obviously this kind of thing, because if I remember their first three beers, they had a farmhouse beer, they had a pale ale, they had a farmhouse beer, and they had, I think it was a collaboration with Extinction Rebellion. Okay. And that was the best of the three. The farmhouse was, I wanted it to have that kind of real farmhouse funk, that Belgium-y yumness.
Yeah.
Just lacking, unfortunately. Okay. Again, I would say that there are very few beers that really nail that kind of proper Belgium-y, like this has been hanging around kind of funk. Bière de Ami is probably the one to go for, their standard, which you can get from Dry Drinker, I think, usually, sometimes.
I have seen it on there.
It drops in and out of stock. It's in little tiny stubby bottles, but it's gorgeous. It's I think it's literally beer with friends, and you could down 10 of those easy over an evening.
These are the beers that I love, though. Is it like the super sessionable ones where you go, right, I could have a lot of that, and that's when you know that you found a beer that you're drinking, because the flavour's just damn good. And like, I mean, that's the only reason to drink this stuff, because it's not intoxicating you. Although what you were saying about like the functional beverages kind of seeing an influx potentially in the future, that's interesting. And actually, Brewlow, while we're on Brewlow, they did a fantastic CBD IPA that Mark Dredge actually put me onto that 12 months ago, pretty much to the date, and that was incredible. And that fell into the category of, it wasn't just a gimmick, like it actually tasted good. Because that's my issue with a lot of these like adaptogen beers. Yeah. It's like the liquid's just not quite there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's my gut. My gut is always when I see somebody's gone, oh, we've added such and such to this beer, and I'm like, is it going to be good? Mm-hmm. Is it going to be shit?
Yeah.
And I mean, some of them that I come out and I'm like, I really genuinely want this to be really good. And I'm just disappointed that it's just like a bit of sort of beery, muddy water with a sort of odd taste.
Yeah, it's like if it was a macro brew and you ignored the adaptogens, you'd say, it was average with a lot of them. Like that's. I mean,
I think the worst advantage for that one, I think, was the saffron beer for me.
See, I didn't have the pleasure.
It was very, I mean, it's interesting. And it was bright yellow in the glass, like really bright yellow. Like I've had a heavy session Dayglow P. It was like, oh God, but it just the saffron taste. I think if you like saffron in a beer, then great. But you're already in a diversive niche.
Yeah.
With alcohol free, then you've made it even nicher by saying, okay, we've put in this really diversive flavor that has some health properties, and then we're making it niche, and it just didn't really work for me personally.
I was gutted when Funkton, is it Funk? Yeah, when they
Function.
That's the one. The mushroom beers, when they kind of went away, because I really felt like there were legs there, or something to go with.
Yeah. Yeah, because is it Zoe? I think it was a female founded beer, that one. Okay. Again, she really pushed for it, and I think one of them was very, very good. Good, but it was one of those ones that was good but not great enough that you kind of wanted to buy a crate of it. So if you kind of came in your rotation or you saw one out, you'd be like, oh yeah, right. And I think there was a number of beers at that point in the market where if you saw them, you were like, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. See, that was really early days for me.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing, I forget, or you don't realise that you've been in this game for a long time, really, the alcohol-free beer game. Like, I first discovered you on the internet when you were doing a few designs for Mash Gang. And I was like, this guy's got like the dream job, making sweet-ass cans for sweet-ass breweries. How did you get into all of that? I'm assuming you were like a designer by trade and then stumbled upon it through a love of beer.
I mean, that's it. I was like, it's a cliche to say that graphic designers and craft beer go together, but they really do. I mean, every single designer seems to just have a love of craft beer along the way. And obviously getting a brewery client is the kind of the dream for quite a few of them. So I had obviously a couple of brewery clients anyway. So yeah, I've been freelance for 4 years probably by the time the pandemic hit. And then obviously I kind of think that's it. I kind of discovered Mash Gang at about the same time as everybody else. That kind of just after they'd done that launch party and they'd had launched a couple of beers. And I think that's it. Jordan just kind of reached out and was like, actually, and it's the usual thing. You're just chatting absolute crap about beer really. And he was kind of like, actually, are you able to help us out with some stuff? So I think it was initially like, okay, we've got this design. Can you it's in a really rough, ready form, and I was like, well, it's got 6 spelling mistakes. Do you want me to correct those too? And so, yeah, it was just basically doing a job that effectively that Jordan was sitting there going, backwards and forwards with various people. It would take him a week and I could do it in an hour. So It was instantly speeding up their process. And then along the way, it's obviously there was a natural fit. We got on really well. I was there when they canned the first stoop in Leeds and drinking it off the line, which was great because everyone was just like, yeah, this is great. We can drink this all day because people, when they're packing beers on lines, will drink whatever's coming off the line. That can be the 8%er, which you kind of shouldn't be drinking around like heavy machinery.
Yeah,
but stoop, easy.
Yeah, just smash
so
all
I've got a real soft spot for what we call Dirty Leeds water stoop.
Okay.
Because it hasn't been really bettered. It has been bettered, but it hasn't been bettered. But if I had to sit there and say, like, Leeds stoop is up here, and then there's, like, London stoop, bit cleaner.
Yeah.
Scotland stoop was there.
Yeah.
But Dirty Leeds stoop.
Stoop is just the one.
It's just, and it just shows you the difference in water profiles. It really does show you how water profiles just massively affect it. And the recipe has been tweaked, to be fair. There's a lot of other work going on there.
Yeah, they didn't just make the beer and then like sit on it for, 5 years lockdown. Obviously not 5 years of stoop, but I was talking to a friend recently. It was like 5 years for first lockdown. It's like, no, that's outrageous. But yes, stoop has been around for a while. I think it was around when I first discovered Mash Gang. I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
Stoop and Chug, I think, were the two big
they were very
hitters.
early. I mean, they pretty much had a core range, which was, I say core range, they kind of had the range they launched with. I don't think any of them, apart from Anxiety Saint, which obviously got bounced around the schedule because it kept failing a little bit and needing a tweak, but it got there eventually. Anxiety Saint was the only one of that initial kind of, we launched in the Brewdog launch party beers that really survived. I think Tahiti Treat might have kind of became.
Okay. See, this is a whole world I'm not familiar with. It's wild.
Yeah.
The dark before times.
The dark before times. When beer was different. Yeah. I mean, but that's it. There was some, I mean, there was just as many beers that we kind of made a label for that then got put out on like the socials. Never happened. Didn't work. Failed. And that's nothing on their mash. They would put out stuff and then for one reason or another, it just wouldn't work. And it was content in the end of the day. So it didn't really matter too hard. But there was some, I mean, like all these things, I think lots of breweries have probably, and this is having the behind the ears for at least like 3 or 4 breweries now. I know that there have been AFs or are AFs in production that have either failed and then will not see the light of day either ever or not yet. So they need to go and do them again, work out where they went wrong. Mainly because obviously that's it. If they over accentuate and they go too high, you've got a problem. You've got so interestingly, so like when Fierce and Mash Gang first started working out, you had obviously Natural History came out and South Central came out, but there were Big Natty.
Okay.
Big Natty was Natural History just over accentuated. which is why it had to be a collaboration with Fierce, because Mash Gang don't have the license to sell alcohol beers because they're an alcohol-free brewery.
Yeah.
So basically it becomes if it's a collaboration, they can get away with it. So effectively so any beer that Fierce and Mash Gang collaborated on was basically a Mash Gang beer that just something went wrong in the tank.
Man.
So it over-accentuated.
That's mad. That's mad. But I mean...
But it means you don't have to waste the beer.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like when I was doing
they were only over a little bit. So I think they ended up coming out I think the label was 2.5, but I think they were about 2.3, 2.2, 2.3. So they went over, but not stupidly so.
Yeah. Well, it was a similar thing when I did the collab with Sam at We Could Be Friends. And I say I did the collab, like when Sam made a beer and put my name on the can.
Which is what I'm drinking right now.
Oh, very nice. That was supposed to be a lager.
Mm.
And I think you might be one of the only people I told about this when it was happening. It was going to be a lager, and it failed in the tank, and it came out at like 1%. And Sam has admitted this on this podcast, actually, so I don't feel bad for kind of outing him now. I was kind of going to keep it hush forever, but now I'm not going to. So yeah, it came out at 1%, and he said, well, first thing is I can't really put your name on a 1% beer because that's just a bit silly. But secondly, it just doesn't taste very good. So there was no saving that one, which was a real shame because it would have been fine to release just a 1% beer if you can, because so much of this stuff does go to waste. I've talked to brewers that have had to abandon brews and it's all just wasted, not just like time, but a waste of money, a waste of resources. And it's
I think that you can see that one of the biggest trends you can see now, as well as the bigger breweries and having extra shots. So they're not just doing the one shot now and then kind of going off and doing other things. They're coming back regular. So, I mean, Daya have obviously had another one. Verdant have done 2 or 3 now. Yeah. And it's really encouraging. But the other thing I'm also I think it shows a lot more hope and integrity is that they're not just using the same hops.
Yes.
So for a while, every single time you got an alcohol, I would say it's not even alcohol free. It was anything below about 4%, 4.5% were just like, yeah, we'll stick in Citra and Mosaic. No one will give a shit. And it's just like, great. That's how you make it taste like one of the pale ales that I can find in the pub. That's brilliant. But does that work best for an alcohol-free beer? Because at the end of the day, there's something lacking. So you, as a brewer, need to work out how to put something back in. And I think some of these newer hops are doing such a good job of that. And I think the 2 biggest examples of that, one is a Brass Castle beer that I did the design for called Life's AF Beach.
Okay.
Be careful on that one because it's called Life's A Beach. It's the full name, but they've just made the put the AF in the middle. They are kind of redone the recipe completely but the basic thing is they've used Sabro being that coconutty, and it just
kind of grassy.
It's a pale ale pina colada beer. That's basically what it comes out as, and it's brilliant. It's really, really good for a first AF effort. They have another one that they were working on. I don't know if that's still in production. I hope it is, which is another one of their core range. But yeah, that one came out first, and I was like, yeah, send me a crate. That looks awesome. And I did, and I was like, yeah,
I fell in love with Sabro.
So summery.
It was the Mash Gang Northern Monk Dipper. I can't remember what dippers are like now because it's been so long.
Hop burn, that's it.
Yeah, bloody hell. But I drank the Mash Gang Dipper purely because it was like, I get to drink a dipper again. And I don't know how it held up to a full alc one, but I know that the flavour that came through from the hops, it was like, it did so much because there was so much in there. And that's when I was like, right, what's this kind of candied grass that I'm getting? Because it's delicious. And Jord kind of took the piss out of me and was like, oh yeah, Ben's discovered Sabro hops. I was like, all right, fine. It's Sabro then. I'm learning, all right. But yeah, but Sabro is...
It's like the Good Karma range, again, also worked on. What Steve did with those 3, they are all using Kent-grown British hops. And I think it shows quite how much, because, as I say, Child's gone from the top of my brain, but it's basically a program designed to try and make more flavoursome UK hops that have the same sort of profiles as these US hops, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And all of them are they're all sisters and brothers and relatives and cousins, and there's a lot of random hop on hop incest going on. But it is coming up with some amazing flavour profiles that means you can drop these things in and nobody would know this wasn't like some amazing US hop. So and of course those sort of things, when you start to throw them into an AF beer, they really do get to shine, and you don't need much hop. That's the thing. I think that's the big learn I did get, is that you don't actually have to, when they double hop, triple hop, you don't have to hop at the same rate as you would if that was an alcohol beer.
Okay. Is that because
I don't believe
the ethanol maybe cuts through
something like that? Yeah, I mean, I do remember basically, because one of the things when Jordan was said with Verdant, was it Verdant? When they had that first collab.
Yes, yeah, with the candle,
and it was, and if you tried it, it had a proper punch of hops, and it was almost a bit too much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something that hasn't happened in the Verdant beers that have then come after that, where they've kind of tweaked it and did their kind of special project range, and then obviously have released, Psych and things like that. And it hasn't got that problem. And basically it's because Jordan said, look, you don't need to hop at the same level. It just doesn't need that kind of aggressive hopping. You can double it, what you would put in, but this is the recipe amount. This is double, this is triple, but it's not up here. And I think they basically went, no, we know what to do. We're just going to stick some hops in it. And it was
intense. It was
intense. It's like chewing hops.
And their first small batch number 6 was very green as like a Calais. Like it was a bit much for me. And then I went back and I think I might have had one of the last pints in their tap room, because I just happened to be in Cornwall at the time, and they were almost at the end of it. And on tap, right at the end, it was damn good, like delicious. And then obviously they've done Psych, which is a continuation of that, and I think it's really well balanced now. And you can. It's nice to see breweries kind of go along this road and to experiment and it be like, right, that was okay, you've done it. But now you've stuck with it and you've actually released a really solid offering. Like, it's nice to be at that place now. Like, I don't think there's many beers that come out now from these, like, well-loved craft breweries that are poor. Like, some of them might be a little bit disappointing, but I haven't had one in months that's like, ugh, that's not very nice.
No.
It's wild.
No, I think that's it. I think the standard is so high. And I think the thing is also there's the advice out there now. There's kind of like there's no one's gatekeeping it. Then everybody's. I mean, they're all open for collaborations. They're all open to things. So there's a lot of goodwill in to get it right. And I think that's it. I have a lot of time for the breweries that have just almost quietly added an AF to their core range and then just gone, yeah, of course we've had a core out. Why wouldn't we? And whether they especially the ones that have got tap rooms, actually, that makes much more sense. Even if they don't always have it on in the tap room on draft, which is a little frustrating.
Yep.
But which you really hope they would. But I mean, like the Utopian lager, absolutely banging.
Yeah.
In fact, I actually had that I think weirdly, I think I'd had one of their pales, because they don't really do pales before. But I think that was the first of their lagers I'd had, and I was so intrigued with it because at that point I was still zebraing a little bit. I was actually like, I want to try some of their others, and I got to be honest, that AF really does stand up to with the range. It is just a natural fit to the range, and it's just so nice to see a really solid core range option that happens to be alcohol free. It's in the same way that, I mean, I really like the fact that when they add whether it's a low ABV option as well, because again, that whole bit between 0.5 and 3% isn't really dealt with because it's so hard to get. But anything that's in that range was, even before the pandemic, that was my kind of that would be my sweet spot. I really
That's your
love
happy
just
place.
table beers. So actually, my journey on it was really, even pre-pandemic, was like, yeah, although I was still buying some of the service, I was just coming down and down and down on the ABV over time, and finding that actually I really just wanted like really flavoursome like table beers initially, and then slowly it's just, since then the market for alcohol free has just got so much better. That's not a sentence. Has just got better.
Yes.
I think that's it. I think that you could take somebody. So there are some people out there who you could take out and go, right, here is an alcohol free. Here is the 2% version. Here's the 4% version. Here's the 6% version. Here's the 8% version. And there'll be people who go for the 8% just, they'll be like, but they taste the same. They all taste the same. If I told you they all tasted exactly the same, they'd be like, yeah, but they don't. This one's got alcohol in it.
Yes. Yeah, I think there's still that stigma. I don't think we're ever going to really lose that stigma, because I think the more kind of available it becomes, the more people are going to be triggered by it. I think, like, I have to remind myself I'm in a very niche part of the internet where I'm in a lovely echo chamber where even like the full fat beer people that I interact with are very much flying the alcohol free flag. And I went to BeerX last week, and I kind of had to remind myself that I'm probably like 12 months ahead of a lot of the people here, because all I do is think about alcohol-free beer, whereas there's a whole world of beer out there that there's loads of things going on as well as alcohol-free beer. So if I'm maybe mentally 12 months ahead of some beer people, then how far ahead are we to like your regular drinker? And that's not in a like, I'm not trying to belittle anyone.
I think the thing is the biggest one of the things that's not talked about, I think, is the biggest factor in Mash Gang's success, as well as the fact that yes, they were doing the weird, crazy stuff that you loved from craft beer, but alcohol free, which no one else was doing. So the idea of having experimental beers and not just going, we've produced a pale ale, guys. Do you want a pale ale? We've got a pale ale. It's got Citra and Mosaic in it. And then leaving it for like 10 months and then not doing anything else. And I think that's it. Just that idea that, and you were like, how is anyone, and the reason that no one else was doing it is because it was just financially just suicide. We're here, we'll produce a beer that's going to take you, it costs a tenner, but we'll sell it for £3.
But it tastes like a breakfast cereal.
Exactly.
Like, what the fuck?
But some of those things were just absolutely mad, and they were like, kind of, rein it in, Jordan, come on. But one of the biggest points that makes Smash Gang so successful is the fact they did not talk at any point and actually market towards the sober community at all. They happened to include them, and they included everybody else as well. And it's that inclusivity that I think is key to Mash Gang. It's not... So many of the brands are like, yes, you can be sober too. And it's only for sober people. And it's actually the biggest thing with Mash Gang is, I think, something like, at one point they did a survey and it was something like 86% of people were drinkers who just happened to use Mash Gang to moderate because it tasted good, and they could either have it at the beginning of a session, or they could have it in the middle of a session, or they could have it at the end of a session. I mean, I do think there was an anecdote that somebody came up. I think it was when Mash Gang launched it in London at one point, and it was I think that was it. And somebody came up to them and said to them, because they'd seen him at the bar and he'd been ordering like double IPAs, and then he had a pint of Stoop, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Well, basically, if I have this, I only have 3 of these double IPAs rather than 4. And that's the difference between being dragged off with my mates for tequila shots.
Yeah. Or just going home and having a nice light.
And that's it. Whereas if I have this, I say no to them and I go home and I get the rest of my weekend.
Man.
I think that was just like, yeah, okay, cool.
See, this is another thing that I need to remember is that, like, a lot of drinkers, like full alcohol drinkers, like, don't have a problem with stopping. Like, for me, I could never mix the two, because once I've got ethanol in my system, like, I want more ethanol and, maybe some lovely cocaine if it's going. Most people, the majority of people, can go, oh, do you know what? I could have an alcohol-free beer now. It's just historically, like when I was growing up and like when I was introduced to the world of beer, there wasn't a good alcohol-free beer. It just didn't exist. So why would anyone drink it? And that's not because the concept was terrible. It's because the drinks were terrible. Like I feel like that was a massive part of it. Like I don't think that there has always been a stigma against people drinking beer that doesn't have alcohol in it. I think the stigma has formed through the poor quality of these liquids historically.
Like, why would you drink that? What are you doing to yourself? Why would you not just drink a Coke?
I can remember my dad saying to me,
because
like,
it is awful. Those awful beers were like, they were just executions in pain in drink form, because they were just horrible malt. Like, there were some beers now that are like malt beverages. They are not brewed. Yeah. They've never seen the inside of a brewery kit. They've not been left for any amount of time. And they are, the exercises. I mean, I would say exercises in liquid brewing. There's an exception to that rule. If you ever had Neon Rain, from Mash Gang, it's very, very hard to get. Basically, I think it was about 10 bottles. I think it's not that anymore. It was a very, weirdly, it's the one beer that, it's their first beer that won an award. But it was like, because it was such a weird, so basically it was a fully liquid beer. So liquid hops, liquid malt. It was with one of the malt houses and they would try, basically the reason why it was going to get a bigger run. So I think the run was like, it wasn't quite 10, but it was not more than like 1,000. It was quite niche. It was quite a quick release. And I think it was that one, and I think it's called Dark Forest, and they had different hop. Problem is they couldn't replicate it on anyone else's kit at any other time. It just would not scale at all. So unfortunately, it was, and they couldn't even repeat it on their kit again. So it was this weird thing where this fluke king came out,
and it just tasted
incredible, and everyone was like, "Wow, this is the future," but couldn't replicate it.
Wasn't to be. God, imagine having. I mean, they've done fine, haven't they? So I'm sure they're not kicking themselves too much. But
no,
that could have changed everything if it was like liquid beer. It sounds so ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is, it's the reason why some of those breweries do the quote unquote liquid beers is because they're incredibly cheap to make, and because you don't have to. You can just mix it with water in a tank. You don't have to brew it, so you're not using all that kit. So you can basically make something it's basically beer flavored water. That's effectively what you're making. So, and of course, when those get out and about, because they're cheap to make, they got a lot of marketing budget. They get out there, and of course, people then experience them and think, "Oh, this is what alcohol-free beer."
Oh, it's like dog food. Do you know what I mean? Like the weird dog food kind of thing, which is just malt, isn't it? Yeah, it's.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Then you get something that's properly, it's just a bit too malty, and you're like, this is okay, but can I just have something else?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the one beer I would say would most like to see in alcohol-free that I've never seen, kind of looping back to that, it's a Saison, but they're just not very popular at all in the bigger market. So you make it down to a niche. But I think somebody will do it essentially, because there was one which was like a sea salt swimmer Saison. I think it was somebody had it. I don't know. It was found in the UK market. It was one of a range, and it was wrapped in paper.
Yeah, Skippers.
Yeah,
I'm sure of that. Yeah. I had that really early doors again, but I can't remember it.
No,
but I remember I loved the bottle.
It was a lovely bottle, and it was okay. It's just a bit forgettable. I mean, I think weirdly, just to go back again to loop into the Sabro hops, I do like some weird ass hops. So Sriracha Ace is kind of my go-to, and not my go-to, but like it's one of those weird ones that's one of the most diverse hops out there, which means for me to sit there and go, can I have a Sriracha Saison, please? NAF is to basically say, I will buy the entire batch. Just can it and send it to my house, thanks. Because no one else will drink it. Because it will be.
If you couldn't even persuade George to do that, like
no, yeah. I managed to get Siege Perilous across the line, so that was my bit.
And that I think either that or Crystal Ammunition, I think is their best lager. Like I think they were fantastic. Like,
although I will say, I mean, again, dirty lead soup. But you see, I have soft spots for soup, and I do say, even before that, and this was before those ones came out, that it is a lager that I would drink happily in lieu of any other, like ABV or otherwise. It is one of the best lagers, hands down, ABV or otherwise. It is really good. And it's just because it's just got that level of complexity and difference and just enough. And also that kind of lovely refreshingness, and it laces beautifully down the glass. I know Jordan will not be happy if I don't mention the lacing, because he did spend a lot of time on that. But it did lace really well down the glass. But yeah, it's all of that stuff. It was just a really solid beer. And I think with our quick lager dive with things like Crystal Ammunition and Siege Perilous, there was a couple of other bits and pieces around the same time.
Low Life and Crystal Ammunition got dropped at like the same time. And George was so into Low Life. I can remember how proud of Low Life he was.
He was. It was a really good.
Do you know what? I think Low Life is at its best when it's like not lukewarm, but like just slightly chilled and a little bit warm and straight out the can. It's the only alcohol-free beer that I've ever enjoyed more out of a can than being poured up and really chilled, because it just makes me feel like a piece of shit when I drink it like that. And
an actual Low Life.
Yeah, it's
the weird thing is that Low Life as a name came up really early. Like it was like the third or fourth beer that I was working on with Jordan. He's like, "Oh yeah, I want to call it Low Life."
Wow.
And I was like, "Really?" I mean, because there's Miller High Life, so that was what we were riffing on. And I was like, "Yeah, but have we?" I said, "I don't think we can get away with it." Like, I don't think, and I think the reason why then it weirdly looped back round year and a half, 2 years later, and I said, not to put too fine a point on it, but you previously said Low Life. Why not? And the reason why it made sense the second time, like a year and a half later, is because the brand kudos was there. It wouldn't have felt this. Yeah. It felt like we could get away with it because people.
It wasn't who the fuck are these guys? It was more like you guys.
Yeah, exactly. And it needed the brand to have evolved and to done that. So the first time we tried it we ended up with calling it Brewski. So Brewski was effectively a very early Low Life. It wasn't, it's totally different, but in the way that Jordan's beers always kind of are, because he's tinkered around with them. He's like, "Oh yeah, this is the same beer." It's not.
It's like, George,
he's done something different.
It's the same broom. It's just had 17 handles and 18 heads. Yeah. I think it's really easy to forget, and this is going to sound like so wrong to say, but it's so easy to forget how brilliant George is, because you chat to him and it's just like, look at this guy, like he's like an exceptional human being and a fucking maverick, and just like all over the place and chaotic as fuck, but so fucking switched on and so important as a person. And not just because I think he's a wonderful human being, but for what he's done for the industry.
I mean, that's it. In terms of the fact that, I remember him, I think it was at Northern Monk, and somebody kind of said something and he kind of answered the question and they went, "What? I didn't know you knew anything about brewing." And it was just like, "Yeah, I am the brewer." Yeah. But I mean, like, I remember there was at one point, and this was not a Jordan problem, but like, when he sits there and talks and goes, "This beer didn't really work necessarily the way we anticipated because of logistics." And he was always using the word logistics. He designed to get something delivered. It was a flavour extract, I think, from memory, to get it delivered to the old Flax store, Northern Monk. And I think it was supposed to arrive there on the Monday, and it didn't. And they were it was going to end getting stuck somewhere. It was going to dispatch. It was going to arrive on the Tuesday. We were brewing Tuesday morning. So this beer, this thing was going to arrive at some point during the day at the site. In the end, they just went, "It's in the tank now. We're going to have to make a call." And so they literally just raided the fridge of the flavour extracts and just threw in some other different things. They just changed the recipe on the fly while it was in the tank.
No.
And it still tasted incredible. That's how good Jordan is. He literally he did a total, and Adam also deserves credit on that one. But the two of them just banged their heads together, totally winged it, disappeared behind the tank, pissed around with it, stadium craft.
Mad. It's mad.
And I know, you know what? You're like, what? Seriously? How?
Yeah. How did you do that?
Yeah.
And because, like, this knowledge wasn't available when Mashgang started. Like, the knowledge that is available arguably comes primarily from Jord. Like, when you talk to people that were involved in the early days, or whenever you looked at a can of beer in the early days, you'd be like, oh shit, it's got Mashgang on the back of it. Even if it wasn't a collab beer, it was like, with Mashgang, done with Mashgang. Like, what he's passed on to people, like, that knowledge is invaluable.
I mean,
I
at
think
one
it
point, I
shaped
know
the
he was
industry.
going to, at one point he was going to just put a load of recipes on a website and just be like, there, have them.
Really?
Yeah. He's the only reason he stopped doing collabs for a while is because it was going to have to be him going up and down and left and right, and he doesn't drive and he's stuck in the middle of Wales. So, and that's it. It literally logistics. But yeah, I mean, I think to say that, I would say at the moment, if you had to say who's the kind of top dog in alcohol free in the UK at the moment, I would say We Can Be Friends, possibly pipping it at the moment. They had a really good January, some absolutely solid beers. They'd, got a whole raft of collabs.
Mm-hmm.
They would be really interested to see. Obviously, they did obviously the your stomach ache beer with Vault City because you drank too many in a week.
Too many of them.
But again, total summer crusher. I am intrigued to see what We Can Be Friends can do beyond just the IPA pale thing. I know it's their thing, but I for all of the kind of whatever the Mashgang stuff that's going on at the moment, where they're kind of settling into the new normal internally, which I don't know about now.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't write them off just because I know how strong Jordan can be. So I think they will come back with something, and they will come back and absolutely. And I'm hopeful also. I genuinely wish them well. I would like them to come back and absolutely blast us off with the next iteration and actually just push the market to the next level.
Yeah, the way I see like Mashgang now, like we talk about like who is like leading the way in the UK at the moment, and for me, I agree it is We Can Be Friends. And I think what Mashgang did with the acquisition and what that has done for the people involved is huge, and what it says about the industry is huge. But now they're kind of it's different, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just like, okay, they're doing better things. Like they've completed the game, and now they're on to the second game. If we look at it like a video game, and it will be really interesting when they start like dropping new releases, and everything is all in place, whatever may be happening there.
Yeah,
and
I think
this is brand new.
The initial plan is as far as I know is to really try and concentrate on a core range and get it into pubs.
Yes, which makes sense for where they are now.
Which makes sense. And I think that's it. I think if as long as you can hopefully have the money to kind of get over because some of the hurdles with alcohol free on draft is basically because you've not got alcohol to disinfect the line, you've got to turn it around relatively quickly. Yeah. Or have a very clean line. And the problem is that, cellarmanship and in pubs is patchy. Yes. And is the nicest way of putting it. So, I mean, you've got to, it's always lovely finding a pub with an alcohol-free on draft. I think, obviously, Lucky Saint has done a great job putting it out everywhere. Mm-hmm. Not so much pushing it up the country, but they are obviously, but they do spend a lot of their capital goes towards their sales team. They've got an enormous sales team, like almost too big a sales team.
Yeah, like they're all over, like even on Instagram. Like, is it the amount of Lucky Saint Marks and Lucky Saint
50
Katie
people
and
doing
Lucky
London
Saint
alone, and they really are hitting London hard.
Yeah.
But we'll see how they succeed. But I mean, they had a very strong lager, and I think whatever they were going to do as a second beer was always going to be a tough ask,
a difficult one
to match up. I think the first time I had the first time I had the pale, I thought it was very grassy. It's very young. Mm-hmm. Didn't think it was quite there yet, and I'd heard some notes about that online. So I thought, okay, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. Had it a second time, and it was better. And my general opinion was that this was very good for where the market was overall, but it wasn't the best beer that could be there. It was very much
it's like if you know, then you know. but there's better stuff out
It's
there.
an everyman pale. It's an everyman pale. It will, it's a broadly drinkable beer that you won't be offended by, but it's not going to knock your socks off you.
I feel like they kind of know that though. Like looking at their marketing now, like for a bit it was all orange, and now they're kind of like, actually, we do a really good lager. Maybe that's the way to go. Well, obviously, I don't think the pale will go anywhere because it's. I'll still buy it occasionally in the supermarket, like as part of my if I just don't fancy a proper job, or like a lager.
I don't fancy a proper job. I know what you mean.
I just want to talk about beer. No. But if I fancy something a bit different, God, actual work. The amount of people that are shocked that I have a day job. And I don't think it's because the content that I do is good. I think it's just because of how much I kind of throw out. And it's like, no, this is a passion project. But
that proper job is now is solid.
Yeah,
I think they've done and I think that's also another good thing is that's it. They've really taken their time to come up with something that's just a bloody good beer.
Yeah, it's so good.
And I think it leads the way. I think it probably leads the way for where, quote unquote, macro, but I mean that's sort of
I'm with
bigger, more traditional brewers can go.
Trusted
brands, yeah. I mean that's it. I think I can't remember which one of the beers we were talking about where it was actually brewed at Adnams. I think I noticed on the can. Was it the Daya?
Yes, I think it was.
I haven't looked on Whether their latest one is Daya.
I'm sure it was Daya because that was the not the most recent one, but the one before that, wasn't it?
Yeah, spoken into existence. I think
that's the one.
We're brewing that at Adams, and I thought, oh, that's interesting because again, I think we've touched on like the fact that there are some beers that are like they're good, but they're not. They're very chameleon beers. I think there are two for me that fall into this category. That they can be a great, or they can be just a bit meh. And I think one of them is Holy Faith. I've had an absolutely amazing pint of it on draft. I've had some quite good cans. I've had some pretty, cans.
Sulphur.
Yeah, where it's just, you're just like, and that's it. I've had one that's literally tasted like I'm actually kind of going, have you just poured me the 4% Faith? Is this what? This is amazing. And then the other one I think is Ghost Ship.
Okay. See, I just don't get on with Ghost Ship. Yeah. So maybe I need to try it again.
Yeah, you see, Ghost Ship, because it's one of those things, it falls into a category where, because it's a citrus, if it's playing badly, it will just come across as a bit too citrusy and a bit too orangey and a bit too kind of, and I think there was a whole period about the time it was launched where there was a lot of beers in alcohol free where they were like, there's no alcohol. We must put something in. Let's add orange juice. And it was just like, let's cut it with lemon. Let's cut it with orange.
Shot of tropical cordial. That'll do the job.
And I was just like, can we stop with, can we just not, I don't want them all to taste like lemon radlers. If I want a lemon radler, I'll buy a lemon radler. But so there was a lot of citrus beers. Citrus pale ales, particularly with Citra and Mosaic and Citrus, Citra, Mosaic. And I was just like, no, please just stop doing the same IPA. But thankfully they've got out of the identikit beers now. And then, so that one, like I say, I've had some very good ones. I don't think I've had it on draft yet, but I have had it. Yeah. Some very good bottles, some very not so good ones. And I say, I know Martin's had it on draft and he said, yeah, on draft. He was like, this is great. I could sit here all afternoon.
Wow.
And I think it depends whether you want it to kind of, because when I say it chameleons, that one chameleons into being like a really nice best bitter, but not because it's got like that citrus just kind of cleans up. So it kind of tastes just like a nice,
I need to give it another go because every time I've had it, it's just been like, ugh, I just really haven't got on with it. But maybe like I hate the smell of orange zest. Like it turns my stomach. So I think like really orangey kind of beers are just like a no-go for me. So maybe
like I say,
I
can't. It's the weird one. It's because it's so divisive that you might get a good one.
Yeah,
you might not.
The weirdest one for me was Thornbridge's Green Mountain. That was the most bizarre drinking experience because you pour it up, and it smells like one of the bad Holy Faiths. Like, I think Holy Faith is pretty renowned for being, either really good or quite poor in cans. If it was as good as it is when it's a good one, it would be one of my top.
Yeah.
Possibly be my number one beer, like, for consistency, if it was that good.
You see, the weird thing is, I always, Northern Monk, the AF range is good, like the Holy Faith when on a good day.
Mm-hmm.
Holy Heathen. Peak, obviously very good, what they've just released. I'm assuming it's an evolution, technically, although it's, again, Citra Lager. But I mean, I think it's a bit of a thing of the Northern Lager, which they did Northern Lager and then did Northern Lager as an AF.
Yeah.
And the Northern Lager alcohol-free was incredible. Really good.
I loved it.
You could see they'd obviously taken some of the inspiration from having Mash Gang's Stoop there.
Yes.
Not a straight copy, I hasten to point out.
No.
Because they couldn't afford the hops, probably, but just because it's a bit of a weird ass hop profile is lovely old Stoop. But I think it's just a really solid lager, and I think with the pales, they're good, but I know Northern Monk have got better.
I think
know
that's
Northern
the thing,
Monk
isn't it? When
better.
I think I had this with Daya, like with Spoken Into Existence. Like, I feel like my take on Holy Heathen and your take on Spoken Into Existence are pretty much identical, but like swapped. So I drank the Daya one, and I was like, there's too much Nelson here. That's how I felt. It disappointed me a little bit. It was still very good. I think my first can, there was something wrong with it, because that one was like almost, I couldn't really finish it. And then after you said how good it was, I thought, right, okay, I can't be that far off here. We can't be like here and here on the spectrum. There's got to be some middle ground. So I've got another can, and it was better. But I thought that Holy Heathen was like brilliant. But this comes on the back of
it's a very good beer. For me, it's just this. I just know. I mean, I think this is the disadvantage, quote unquote, sometimes being able to experience some of the breweries' ABV output, and there's a natural comparison point. I mean, I think to say that alcohol-free beers are the same as ABV beers would be wrong. I think to say that they are as good as, and they are an equivalent, and there's almost a different drinking experience to knowing that this is an alcohol-free pale to being this is a ABV pale. Regardless of that ABV scale, obviously the higher you go up, the more hop burn you're going to get, the more the alcohol is going to be tasteable. Tasteable? That's not really a word. But like, there's a reason. I mean, with Holy Faith, you can they were always this thing of, what if you made it even lower? And obviously they've done so Holy Faith, Faith was 5.5%. They've now lowered that to 5%.
Okay.
They also do a lower version at 4%. There's if I can taste it. If no, I prefer the 4% version because I just think it's a little bit lighter, a little bit fluffier. But before that, I would always go Striding Edge, which is 2.8.
Right.
So, and now I basically have kind of all but given up on those as well because I just got alcohol free. But
do you think
I sort of zebra a little bit?
Do you think we'll ever see like table beers being obsolete? I was asking this in earlier episodes. I say earlier episodes, they might come out after this one because I'm not very organised. But I went in on table beers a little bit and was kind of like, what's the point? I don't understand them, because if you can get a 0.5% to be as good as a 2% now, I don't understand where the place is for like low beer. But then I've been reflecting on that recently, and I've been like, right, that is Ben the alcoholic talking. That's not Ben the beer lover talking, and it's hard to separate the two sometimes. So what's your take on that, on table beers and the future of them?
I think as I say, I think there is a different flavour profile that you get from just a little amount of alcohol. So those beers at 2.5, 2.8, 2.8 is an arbitrary thing because it's about keeping it under a tax threshold. Right. That's why 2.8 is the weird number that you see them, they're getting under a tax threshold.
So we accidentally got there again. What are the odds?
Yeah. But yeah, so I think there is you can get a bit more. The hops just come to start to sing a little bit higher, and they come a little bit more. And I think for me that there's a point where it's kind of like this is, and supposedly there was some, and I don't, it's an urban myth, I think, but that your body could break down the alcohol at the same rate you could technically drink it at 2.8. So you wouldn't get drunk, but you would. It's bullshit, obviously. But
again,
the idea
that's
was
how the alcoholic spoke. The alcoholic
know,
bloody spoke then.
Yeah, but the idea is that it should be able to go through.
Right.
And it's low enough that if you want to have a beer and you have a couple of units, you could have something that it tastes more like beer than, obviously, if they come up with a beer that's where the profiles are exactly the same. It's your alcohol free, your 2%, your 4%, your 6%, your 8%, your 10%, and just go, right, where are you on this scale? What do you want to drink?
Yeah.
Because there will be people who will sit there and go, oh, this, I think, this mid-range is better. I think this is better. And you could sensibly give them the exact same liquid and they'd be like, and tell them that the ABV is different. And somebody would go, yeah, I like it. This is the 6%. I like this. This is the best one. And it'd be like, it's the same liquid. It's still alcohol free. We've just given you Beck's Blue.
Right.
Or whatever.
It's just
I don't know,
where you're comfortable or what you're familiar with.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
what
that's
you
it.
like to drink.
Yeah. I mean, my thing for years has always been, why, if I can get pretty much the same flavor profile from a 4% from a 4% beer as I could from a 6% beer, why am I needing the 6% beer?
Mm-hmm.
I just don't get it. If I can get it the same flavor profile and enjoyment from a 2.5% beer, why would I go for a 5% beer? And so the same is true when you take it to alcohol free. Why do I need to have an alcohol beer if I can get the same enjoyment from an alcohol-free beer, and I can have two of them?
Yeah, and that's as we were saying, you can extend it because sometimes for some people getting a little bit boozed is quite fun. So I suppose if you can get to that lovely 2-pint stage on like 6 pints of table beer, that's a good time, and all power to the people that can still do that. I'm not jealous at all. No,
but that's it. If you think about it, if you were to just total up your ABVs and not as some weird arbitrary system of monitoring your thing, but that's it. It's six pints at 5% is a lot higher than at 2.5%. I'm not going to try and do the maths now. My brain is fried. But you get what I'm trying to say. It's, you could basically go and have 4 beers and keep it under 10% total versus like, higher and higher and higher. And I think that's it. There is always going to be a market at the moment for those people who want to drink enormous stouts that are
I loved them.
Huge. 12%, 14%. I mean, I'm doing labels for them. I'm not a big fan of them because I almost get tempted to sneak in a secret message. I haven't. If anyone's listening, I haven't done this. I will never do this.
Please don't drink this.
That just says, perfect for alcoholics.
Yeah. Well, literally, the first thing, as soon as you mentioned like a 14% stout, I was like, yeah, I love them. Like, hi, the most open alcoholic on the internet. But I loved them. But that was when things got dangerous for me, was when I started drinking these high ABV beers. I was never a nasty lager drinker until I was a nasty, like, high ABV beer drinker, and then the spiral started. But
I don't think those high ABV stouts are drunk by anyone who isn't an alcoholic particularly. At least there will be people who will sit there and go, I can have one on an evening, and I'm like, yeah, okay, and how many evenings a week? And you're like, and then it starts to, because the problem is you don't need very many of those. No. Before you suddenly already hit, 14 units you're allowed in a week in the UK now? They keep lowering it, so I think it's about 14. And yet arbitrary, I kind of wonder, I haven't, because I haven't asked at any point, but I think technically, depending on which you ask, some alcohol-free beers technically count as like 0.1 units, because legally it's got a slight unit.
Yeah.
So at which point you kind of go, well, I've had 10 of these. Does that count as a unit at the end of the week? And the answer is no, of course it doesn't, because then you'd have to add brioche buns, bananas, and all the other shit. And you go be like, yeah, that's just not going to do that.
I was on the radio not long ago talking about Sainsbury's with the meal deal and how they had alcohol-free beer in the meal deal now, which I thought they had about a year ago. I'm sure Lucky Saint was in a meal deal like a year ago, but apparently it became news again in like the Metro. Lucky Saint and Corona were in a meal deal, and they were like, I've got a good relationship with my local BBC station, and they rang me and said, what are your thoughts on this? And I kind of gave my take on it, and then hung up and thought, I'll listen to the next person just to see what. And the first thing was, guy comes on, and this isn't to discredit this man at all, because if you don't know, you don't know. He was like, the thing is, this stuff, it's still got alcohol in it. And you look at it, 0.5 alcohol, it's still got alcohol. And he was fuming. And I just there were two things that came into my brain. The first thing was I emailed my contact at the station and said, just so you know, this is the science on this, because I think it's really important to put it out. And they did. And then I felt like a real keyboard warrior. But the second thing was, the people that were so furious about alcohol-free beers becoming a part of a meal deal are probably the same people that are praying for the good old days to return when you'd go for a pint on lunch. Pints at lunchtime at work.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, I will say I didn't really ever follow the corporate structure. I don't really like corporates. Anything gets a bit too corporate, I'm like, just sort of makes me shudder in the corner, and I'm like,
yeah,
cold shower.
That was my life for a short time. I didn't get on well.
But I remember drinking, I think it must have bought it in Sainsbury's. It doesn't exist anymore. And I think it was called like Barreled or something like that.
Okay.
And it was a fruit juice that they had brewed like a beer, like in a brewery or something. I don't exactly know, because this was way back. But it basically, when I say something about that process, whatever they'd done to it, meant that as a fruit juice, it was, and it's like, red fruits or whatever, just gave, that sip you get from the first sip of beer. That one that's the really refreshing, you just kind of go,
just a little dopamine hit. Go, it did that. And I was like, how the hell had they done that? Because it had that thick kind of, it would coat the back of your mouth. It would make you feel refreshing. It was first sip of lager, first sip of beer, first sip of pale, whatever it is, good. And I'm hoping whoever made it has gone on to do some amazing things. You'll probably find that they nail own Brewdog or something. I don't know. It was probably fucking Jordan by accident.
Yeah, probably. There'll be somebody. I don't know what happened to that, because the Sainsbury's near me is one of those trial stores where they occasionally just add shit that you then go, it's amazing, and then you can't buy it anywhere else.
Bye.
Yeah, so they just try stuff out, which is really good and also really annoying simultaneously. Because at the moment their alcohol-free range is like 4 or 5 shelves long. It keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Okay.
Because they were falling behind, on both beer, the craft stuff on the other aisle, and the ABV and the alcohol-free stuff. They were falling behind on both. And now they're slowly starting to catch up, because that's it. They've kind of gone, right, we'll get a bit of Holy Faith in there. We'll get a bit of Proper Job up here. There we go.
Yes, I did see Proper Job was now in Sainsbury's as well.
That's it. So they're just slowly starting to, branch out. And it's not just shit. It's actually some quite nice stuff.
For me, I'm so disappointed in my my Asda. Because Le Chouf is in a lot of Asdas. And it's not in mine. But my Asda is still, and it's a big Asda, like it used to be a B&Q. That's the size we're talking here. But the alcohol-free section in my Asda is still Beck's, Heineken, Guinness, I think Bavaria, and that's it. And it's like, what? This is it's a big supermarket.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's weird, because they do vary quite a lot around the country. Because I remember going into an Asda and going, what the hell this is really, what? And thinking it looked really posh.
Okay.
Which Asda's don't.
No.
But it's all just depends, because obviously they do the same offers, but it depends which offers they put on the ends of the aisles.
Yeah.
So most Asda's, it's it's the crisps, it's the the junk food, it's all like. But this one obviously had some of that, but it was all like, oh yeah, nice ingredients, la la la. It's Harrogate for you. Harrogate Asda, the poshest Asda in the country.
Did you go to Bath?
Yes. And it would have been the same. It would have been like, oh yes, this is the poshest. We are going for the Waitrose crowd.
You don't want to know what's on the end of mine. In my Asda, at one point, they were putting security tags on the cheese, because addicts were from I want to say heroin, but
didn't Anthony Warren Thompson steal some cheese?
Did he?
I think so. I think he got done in for stealing cheese.
Wow.
Actually, in terms of, because I was just trying to work out who was the best supermarket now in terms of just a range. And although I think Ocado do quite a good range of alcohol-free, because they had Vendor Chic.
Yeah.
It's a Playground and
from the Dutch place. What,
from
Holland?
the Netherlands, yeah.
The Dutch place. God.
The Dutch place, the Netherlands, yeah. So they've got a couple of those, as well as like some other quite good. And I was a bit like, okay, because I don't think anyone else actually stocks other than like the proper ABV, the supermarket. Yeah, because that's it. You can't, you can get it over here. It's just not that often.
That's crazy.
Because they are quite good beers.
Yeah, I love their Playground IPA. I think it's fantastic. I had it in Café Golem in Amsterdam, and that was lovely. Actually, it was like, oh, okay, that's when I kind of, because I didn't get on with their hard pour stout.
No,
but stouts are a tricky one, and I kind of wrote them off after that, which was foolish of me, because the Playground IPA is very good. But there are some incredible European beers as well that are out there.
Yeah. I mean, I will admit I didn't buy the 2 Admonson stouts initially, because I was like, there's probably other beers that I'm going to prefer more on their own P5 order. And then obviously Trembling Madness got them in, because they read my emails and are stalking me, and they work out what I'm going to buy, and then they bring it into the stock. And it pisses me off.
Yeah, that
because
was
I think I was
range.
still waiting. Yeah, because I was waiting at one point before Christmas. I was waiting on, or maybe January, but I was waiting on Northern Monk to get their order through. And I was waiting on the Sykes to arrive. And then both of them arrived in Trembling Madness like the same day. And I was like, okay. And obviously you have to, obviously the advantage with Trembling Madness is I can order, if I order before 4:00, I get it the same day. They literally deliver it an hour later.
That's so good.
And then go, hi, yeah, here's your order. It's a bit heavy.
You're like, yes, it is.
Because I just get, you get the pretty box, and I just get like a box of mead that's been stuffed with cans. And has some refreshers stuck in the top.
Yeah, I get the refreshers. I still get the refreshers. I forget about the refreshers, but I get them regardless.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always
I
like
just
when
get
I
a
go
man
to
who
break
just
it down
turns
for
up
recycling.
Usually in his BMW, he's just like, excuse me, mate, is your beer?
That's the world I want to live in, though.
Yeah.
When you've just got beer being sent to, like, the saddest beer delivery I ever had was, it was during COVID, and I put out a thing on Facebook. I was like, I've run out of beer. Who wants to bring me one? And someone that I used to work with, I hadn't spoke to them in like years, just messaged me. I was like, I'll go to your doorstep, and there was a solitary like bottle of Grolsch on there. And I was like, this is really, really sad of me.
Yeah. Because
I was only half joking when I asked if anyone could bring me beer.
You see, that's it. There's some big beers that haven't got an AF version, and some of them you just wonder if it ever will. No, I think there are some that I will say that are never going to get one. Carling. I don't think there's ever going to be a Carling AF.
I would love that so much.
I just don't ever see it. Maybe April Fools, but other than that, no.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
The Carling drinkers are kind of your typical full-on angry gammons who just will never... I mean, the guy who lived above me, we discovered this during COVID, because he'd go out every day, even though you were like, not supposed to. He'd drive out in his car.
Yeah.
And he'd come back with a crate of Carling or 2, and you'd be like, okay, well, he's stocking up. That's fair enough. It's COVID. You're not supposed to go out every day. And he'd go out the next day. But it was, the problem is the crates weren't every day, but the bags to the recycling kind of was just, you got the impression that it was like, hang on a minute, 3 crates have just gone in. It was 3 days ago he had 3 crates went in, and hang on. And you're like going, you're drinking a crate of Carling every day. Because his wife was drinking wine, because we saw the wine bottles would go out, and they were also going out at the same. So she was drinking probably a bottle of wine every night. And we were like, wow. Just wow. And I think somehow always kind of just any level of alcoholism I could have just sort of slunk into during COVID. Mm-hmm. I think that was kind of kept me on the straight. Now I was like,
thank God for Carling then.
Yeah.
Because I do think a lot of people kind of developed a relationship with alcohol during COVID. It's going to go down as one of the, like, I mean, we're seeing the effects of it now with a lot of studies coming out about home drinking and things like this, and the harm by alcohol.
Yeah, well, I think there was some statistic that the same amount of alcohol is now being drunk as before as I think, like, it was 2024. They said same amount of alcohol is being drunk, but just by a lot less people.
Okay, wow.
There was literally a statistic that was like that. Yeah. 10% of the market's now stopped drinking, but the alcohol level hasn't gone down. It's just that more people, like 10% of people are drinking more than they were pre-pandemic. Yeah, so there are those who've given up, and there are those who've cut down, and then there are those who've just gone, no, I'm going to drink more. So, yeah.
But no, I think if we ever see an alcohol-free Carling, I think that's when we can accept that this is not real and we're living in a simulation.
Days, isn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be. Like, I had a Madry recently, and that was like, someone sent it to me, and they couldn't tell me where they got it from. They couldn't tell me what, but it was like a test that was sent out to a certain supermarket.
It's such a weird thing though, because it's like rebadged. Is it like 4X or something? That it's basically one of their other random brands. But yeah, it's like, it's just weird. But yeah, the weird thing is, but the weird thing is that Aldi do a Madry copy. Yeah. Theirs actually is brewed in Spain. So theirs is more authentic than the actual product. Well, because like actually theirs is brewed in the country that it's supposing to be from.
It's like the M&S Czech Pilsner or Czech Lager.
The weird one I found, though, and I haven't had it, mainly because I don't like the original particularly, which is they do cans in Aldi of... And this is what... I think I sent you a picture of it because it was a total game changer. And it's Heineken 00, but a rip-off. Yeah. And you know something's happening with the market when Aldi does a rip-off of it. I mean, Aldi's rip-offs don't always make sense. I think it's weird that they've got Establishment Ale and Punk IPA, and they're both brewed by Brewdog. So Brewdog is actually destroying their own market within Aldi.
Well, they did a
rather
collab
than just
as well,
getting people
didn't
to
they?
buy Punk. Yeah. But that's it. That anti-establishment ale is brewed by Brewdog. And it's a copy. It's basically the same thing. They just split the line, but I just think it's bizarre. But yeah, I think the idea that they've literally think that Heineken 00 is so popular, and there's going to be such a market that they've done a copy of it.
That's mad.
You probably find it's better. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, it wouldn't be difficult, would it?
It wouldn't be a high bar to get over.
No,
but I just don't want to buy a crate of it. Cause...
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I'd get one just to be like, oh, okay. I mean, I am the kind of person that I will buy a crate of it, and the rest of it will just sit in my cupboard and never be drank, or I'll do a giveaway. Be like, you don't want to win this one. Don't enter. You'll regret it.
Here, you get all of these amazing beers, and I've snuck some shit in too.
You could win this one delicious beer and all of this as well.
Yeah.
Like...
20 amazing beers.
Yeah, that'll be the next one. So, yeah, nobody enter the next giveaway because it's just going to be the shit that I didn't want that's going out of date soon or has gone out of date, which hopefully we're seeing the end of these very short shelf lives.
Yes.
I'm noticing a real improvement there because that was a real issue for me for a long time.
Yeah, that's it. I think they're getting that's it. But there's the thing with both Mashgang and others were all learning at the same time about, okay, how much do we need to put these through pasteurization? How much do we need to throw preservatives at them? Can we get away with one, not the other? Can we do both? Can we do this? Can we do that? And that's it. I think, there was the summer explosions.
I've heard of the summer explosion.
Yeah. Northern Monk, but had... I think it might be a Holy Heathen. The first batch exploded in a drawer. It wasn't that warm, and then I may, when we moved out, I may have had to. I did have to stay, but there was a slightly blue stain on the carpet from one of the Mashgang / Northern Monk gachas.
Right.
Because the blue ones like to explode quite badly if you got them too warm. Because apparently that one, over-accentuated or did something a bit afterwards.
Yeah.
So the blue one, the red one was fine. The yellowy one, the other two were okay, but the blue one.
Lively.
And also the most staining.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like they did it intentionally.
Yeah. So the blue one was explosive. It didn't do it very often, and then as I say, if you kept it cold, it was fine. But yeah, there was this very much a point where you had to keep every single one AF beer at a really stable temperature and drink it about 3 months before it got to its date, or you were screwed.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is, like, because I did all the cans for a lot of the Mashgang stuff, I can see when I see someone on a go and they're going, oh yeah, come and drink some of this amazing Mashgang beer. And I'm like going, that's like 2 years old. Yeah, don't open it. Don't go near it. It'll explode.
You're going to be drunk.
Yeah, or you'll just be stuck on the toilet for 4 days.
Yeah.
It's one of the two. Because like that's it. Some of them they go a bit. But
Yeah, I've seen a video doing arounds recently, actually, of those Mashgang Northern Monk beers for the different coloured ones.
Yeah.
As an advert.
Yeah, there's a guy for, I think it's an advert for Brewster.
Yeah. It's Brewster.
Yeah.
It's Brewster. And it's like, each one's a different colour. It's like, bro, this was literally 3 years
ago. Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. The only thing those beers are going to do is decorate your walls now.
And your toilet.
Yeah, if you can even get the things open, but I mean, I don't think that. Hopefully I'm thinking it's a clip from.
It's got to
back
be
when
stock
they were
footage,
out, and
it?
it's just been like reused, and they haven't thought of like redoing it. So
I hope not,
because I just can't see.
Yeah,
them.
check your labels for goodness sake. Like it's not like the full elk stuff. That was a lesson I had to learn quite early on. I've lost so much beer to it.
See, that's the other thing I'd like to see a bit more of in AF. Did you ever have, they came in bottles initially, which is the Ta'ul, like, it was like dragon fruit and something. They were like fruit beers.
Yes.
I can't remember what they called the range,
why is that ringing a bell?
But then they put them into cans and they were fine, but of course I think the cans were 330s, but the bottles were like 3.75s, or like they were a little bit, they weren't quite big, they were quite somewhere in between the two.
Yeah, that's really ringing a bell.
Because that was the reason I first placed an order with ONP5. And then annoyingly, they brought them to fucking UK trembling bloody madness.
God's sake.
I think they did, but I think they took 2 months to get it over, because then I ordered some more, because I remember talking to Jordan about these. And they were just like really, they felt really sophisticated. They felt like an experienced beer. And I think that's one of the things if you're talking about those big ass stouts and those massive kind of like, some of the stuff that Vault City do is kind of like, oh, we've got a crazy, donut beer with, sprinkles or whatever.
Yeah, like a funky fluid kind of vibe.
Exactly. Some of those stuff, you want to put it in a glass and, you kind of want to sip and savor. And I think that's it. Sometimes they can obviously go a bit too silly and they become, okay, this is a gimmicky beer that you just want to drink, and you probably drink a little bit of things like the cereal beer, which was just flavoursomely cereal milk. I still remember Jordan, the first time they made the cereal beer, he washed his hands 6-7 times. They still stank of Lucky Charms. He had to, he was just like, going, what is that smell, Jordan? He's like, because I've washed my hands 6 times. I still smell of Lucky Charms, because he had to unbag them all and put them in the,
That's what
I think he learned next time, just to use flavour extracts and not to put like any cereal in the mash tun. Because
I love
there's
that
a reason.
Beer.
Yeah,
like,
there's a reason that Mash Gang have a reputation for sticking mash tuns, like absolutely gumming the out of breweries, because the amount of shit they would add to some of those beers, like that one literally was like, we're going to have to get this out with like a crowbar.
When milkshake shops became really trendy, and you could pick any chocolate that you wanted to go into your milkshake, do you reckon George just like fell in love with that? And that's probably where his whole like character arc began, was in a milkshake shop.
The problem is that after a while you put those in and they all ended up tasting kind of similar, because it was like, oh, it's a chocolate milkshake with a vaguely taste of caramel.
Yeah, and really, really sickly sweet, because I've got carried away again. And that was probably the early sign to me that I had a problem with addiction, because I had every chocolate that you could possibly get.
But you see, I think that's it. Experience beers.
Yeah.
Is one of those areas. The idea that you could, I mean, I know Jordan talked about it at one point, and it was all kind of just, kind of if it ever happened. The idea, though, that you could create something flavoursome, a bit sophisticated, still definitely a beer. And obviously with those fruit flavours, the problem is if you go too like juice, and I think this is one of the reasons, like, sort of, if you took some of the Vault City ones and then just made them AF, they'd sell. Oh yeah, they'd sell. But some people would go, well, that's just a fruit juice. That's just Vimto, isn't it?
Yeah.
And inarguably,
it gets harder to argue, doesn't it?
It gets much harder to argue. and again, so with some of those things, you kind of go into like some of those things where you go, well, yeah, actually but I think that's it. The balance with those sours had from Ta'ul were that they just tasted, they didn't taste as sophisticated when they were in a can.
Yeah.
Again, they lost that experience element. They were still tasty.
It's a massive part of it, isn't it?
But the experience of having them in these big bottles that you kind of can crack open, pour really nicely into a lovely tulip glass and just sip and savor and just be like, oh, this is lovely. And I think that's it. I think you can still have those experience beers, ones that you don't want to just, I think that's it because there's the proclivity that you can just chug literally any AF and you can go down the glass really quickly and then you can open another one. It means that, that's great, but you also want to have those ones where you just be like, actually, I just want to have something
this is a treat. This is a treat for me because that's what these drinks are. Like they are a treat. You don't drink them instead of like water. It's like, I'm going to have this because it's nice and I'm enjoying it. So that's where they should be in your diet. And I'm no health expert, trust me. Final question.
Mm-hmm.
We touched upon it briefly earlier. Where do you think the future lies with alcohol-free? What do you think the next breakthroughs are, or what would you like the next breakthroughs to be?
I certainly think there's going to be some sort of discovery of a molecule or something, a chemical, something that adds that flavor profile of alcohol beers, but without the alcohol. Something that really replaces it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's something, I say neotropic, but something that's properly functional. I think there's something there. And because you could look at any other industry and there's almost an equivalent where they've kind of got round the problem. So whether there's something, whether it's a natural extract they can add, a plant extract, something that, and obviously, you could be then further down the line where they discover that it's actually addictive and that we shouldn't be drinking it. But, that's kind of down the line where you kind of go, well, actually, this is. So I think there's that. I think I'd be interested to know whether or not, obviously, when they do they're doing the review of where the thresholds lie.
Mm-hmm.
So what counts as alcohol free, what doesn't? Because there's a lot of confusion and things about, does 0.5 count? At the moment, it's got to be a low alcohol, or it's a non-alcoholic beverage, and all this kind of stuff. I think that will all get cemented down and re-clarified. And I know, for example, Ireland at the moment are going to put in starting to put in stuff that says, I can't remember the exact wording, but it's something like alcohol can cause cancer. And
like the alcohol warning labels and things.
And it's. Well, the worst thing of theirs is that they actually are going to end up killing their market a little bit, I think,
right?
Because they've put this thing on and it's ugly as sin, right? They've done it. It's been written by a bureaucrat in Word, and currently it's in Times New Roman, and supposedly you can't change it, and it's
good.
huge.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, because it's got a nutritional information, it has to have the calories and the fat and the carbohydrates. It would basically mean, because that information is just not available for most specials, it just isn't, which is why special alcohol-free beers don't tend to have it on. So the likes from Daya and because they're only doing them as limited edition. Once that stock's gone, it's gone. Whereas you do get it on your core range stuff because they have to count as soft drinks, and therefore
right,
because they have to count as soft drinks, they have to be counted with the calories. Again, it's one of those weird things where it's almost counting alcohol-free beers as a health choice, as opposed to, because you can't. It's not like you can compare it to a beer, because nobody knows what. If I go and bought a can of Daya, does it have are the ABV calories on? No, but they're alcohol-free. If they have a core range, might do.
Right.
So
okay.
Basically, you've got the calories on a lot of alcohol-free beer, but you haven't actually got it on the ABV stuff at all. You never have, because they don't have to put it on. And there's so much other shit, like all of the buyback schemes and the recycling schemes, and just a lot of clutter. Just a lot of clutter, which I have to sit there and knee around with and be like,
yeah, that's fun.
Just trying to work that all through. That and also all of the the allergens and all that kind of stuff, and that just gets dense and stuff. But yeah, so because they're doing that, I think there's going to be a lot of just that. Yeah, I think just changing how people can perceive the sector as well. So I think it will change, because I know that one of the big things when they were potentially changing that 2.8%, I think they were going to make it higher or lower, I think, or something, that text threshold. It would have brought more beers under the threshold.
Right.
So I think you're already starting to see like lots of beers already getting brewed lower. And I think there's just a natural thing where there will be more and more beers coming in at that range. And I think that's it. As they start to legislate more on alcohol beers, and there's some clarification of alcohol free, I think you'll get more and more alcohol free coming through, and it will be genuinely alcohol free, that we can actually say it, whether it's 0.5 or 0.0. There won't be any of this, we won't have to correct the argument about whether 0.0 is more pure. If obviously it's on there, and if you're strictly kosher, or you're whatever your lifestyle is, if you need it to be 0.0, brilliant, it's there, but it doesn't need to be on the wording. I think you can look at the ABV, because that's just a specific thing that's to you. It's like the same as if you've got an allergen for oats. You'd be looking at every beer label to check whether there's oats in it. I think it kind of goes into the same sort of things.
God, I hope to live in a world where I never have to tell anybody the ABV of a ripe banana again. That is the one thing that I want from this. Richard, thank you for coming to chat to me. This has been long overdue, like just a good, like face-to-face, albeit through a computer screen, conversation about beer, because, we talk every day pretty much, so, this is more or less just what we do anyway. So,
pretty much.
I'll probably talk to you in about 5 minutes after this, anyway. And if not, then I'll catch you tomorrow.
Catch you later.
We can, and indeed did, talk about alcohol-free beer for an entire evening. I had to edit out pretty much more of that episode than ended up making the cut. Richard is a fantastic advocate for alcohol-free beer, and he's a fantastic graphic designer. If you picked up any early Mashgang beers, you probably had him to thank for the artwork on there. For now, my name is Ben Gibbs. You can find me on all the socials at Sober Boozers Club. You guys, take care. The music's stopped. Now I don't know what to do. Is this going to make the final cut? I think it probably will,